All right, as you scan the Week 4 board, what leaps off the page for you?
Looks like I got about 5 sides here and a couple of totals.
Okay.
We'll go through the sides here, and you can stop me when you want to, or we can circle back here and dig into some more detail. But I like Bills at 2.5. I bet Chargers at 5.5. I see that's at 6 now. I think 6 is still fair. I like Colts at -1. I would sell that out to 2.5. I like Giants at -1. I would sell that out to 2.5. And then I like your commies catching 8.5. So those are the 5 sides that really stand out to me.
Commies catching 8.5. Okay, let's drill down on some of those. The first one that comes to mind is that Giants spread against the Seahawks. That is the Monday night game. The Giants are in fact favored. I thought the Seahawks would be favored, on yesterday on guessing lines. You've already bet the Giants. What is it in this matchup that you see?
I see a Seahawks team that can't rush the passer, which means Daniel Jones is finally going to face an opponent where he'll have time to, kind of operate the offense. I think in general, they effectively waved the white flag on their Thursday night contest against the Niners. So I don't think there was really any signal there. That was just a pass. And I think, with the extra rest and time to prepare for this Seattle defense, I think the Giants offense is going to get going in this one. And you flip the script and you look at what Seattle looked like when they were facing a pretty aggressive interior pass rush week 1 against the Rams. And I think Dexter Lawrence can imitate that pretty successfully and really kind of stymie the Seattle offense. I think Seattle's offensive line and the cluster injury they're dealing with is being slightly underpriced here by market. And I think the Giants get their first win of the season outside of 3.
Okay, Buffalo, you're laying the 2.5 against the track meet that is the Miami Dolphins coming off their 70 burger, as people are calling it. What do you like about the Bills here besides the fact that it's lower than 3 where you got it?
Well, I'm in my historical bag here, and it's very tough to repeat 70 points scored in an NFL game. The 1950 LA Rams almost did it. After scoring 70 against
who could forget?
The Baltimore Colts.
Yeah.
They scored 70 against the Baltimore Colts. They came back the next week. They only got 65.
Sure.
So, it's tough. It's tough to go back-to-back weeks with the 70 burger. But no, in seriousness, this is a pretty narrow edge. I don't think there's a ton of meat on the bone here. I think I'm just betting this because it's the game of the week and I want to watch it and I want to have some stakes involved. And my handicap isn't especially sophisticated here. I just think that the Buffalo Bills defense is a much, much tougher test for the Dolphins than what they saw week 1 and week 3. More akin to, I rate the Bills and the Patriots pretty similarly in terms of what they can do to really slow these guys down. I'm not expecting Waddle to go here for the Dolphins. And so if you can kind of find ways to really bracket and take Tyreek Hill, at least keep him under, keep him under 10 recs and 100 yards in this game, then I think Dolphins are going to have a tough time getting to 30 points. And then on the flip side, this Buffalo Bills team is rostered pretty much perfectly to take advantage of the weaknesses of the Dolphins defense right now. I think that in general, you're going to see pretty solid protection from this front. And I think Josh Allen can carve this secondary with the weapons that he's working with right now. I like the balanced attack. Cook looks like he's getting going. Some of the concepts of, the heavier personnel packages that the Bills are running look like they're finally getting their feet under them in terms of what they want to be as an identity offensively. And I like that as a home favorite under 3 here. Nothing against the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are absolutely in the mix for, still winning the AFC East and, still being in the conversation for the 1 seed in the AFC. But this particular matchup, I feel like the Bills are being a little bit underpriced.
Real quick before we go to break, 1-word answer. If the Dolphins win this game and they win it somewhat convincingly, they immediately the short shot to win the AFC?
Oh yeah, this is massive equity. If you have, if you're 4-0 and you've got your road win against the Bills in pocket, then you're basically an inside track to the 1 seed.
Okay, a couple more of your sides that I want to talk about before you get to your totals. Chargers, okay, I don't think we have to talk about that. We get it. They're playing the Raiders. But the Commodores, you're taking the points against the Eagles. Well, the points are the great equalizer. But what makes you think the Commodores will keep this in the number?
Are you calling them the Commodores just because Commanders is such a lousy name?
Yes, yeah. Taco holders. Anything but.
Anything but the Commanders.
Yeah. I think that name will be gone by next year too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Washington football team is a bet for me at 8.5. I think this should be closer to 7.
I like it.
Short week for Philadelphia. I was on Philadelphia yesterday. I had them staked pretty aggressively against Tampa Bay, and it was a pretty straightforward handicap, which was Philadelphia's D-line was going to wreck that game and really kind of expose Baker Mayfield. When Baker Mayfield goes up against a top-tier D-line, I think you basically have to write off Tampa Bay getting into the 20s. Philadelphia with the short turnaround, all these guys coming off of apparently flu-like symptoms, I think it's going to be tough for them to get ready, get right for a Washington team that I think is a little bit better than the market is rating. They were bet aggressively last week against the Bills and then utterly no-showed, although there was some fluky stuff in that particular contest that I think made the score, the box score, tilt against them. And I, as bad as Sam Howell was, I kind of give him credit for keeping slinging it, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't good football from him, but he didn't back down. I like that he has like a little bit of moxie. A lot of young quarterbacks in those sort of situations, they just kind of, pack it in and they're not really trying to come back. But whatever the case is, Washington matches up fairly well against Philly. I think, you saw 2 pretty competitive contests between these teams last year. And I think this one's going to be similarly competitive. The general kind of matchup here that I'm excited about is I like Washington's run defense to keep Philadelphia a little bit one-dimensional here, and we just aren't seeing anywhere close to the right chemistry between Hurts and his wide receivers this season that he had at the end of last season. Some of that may be shoulder injury he's dealing with. Some of that may be the receivers are just a little bit out of sync and out of sorts right now, dealing with undisclosed injuries of their own. You guys were joking about point shaving or, just in general awareness of the spread and stuff yesterday. The only really weird performance I saw was A.J. Brown, who very sincerely did not want to score a touchdown at the end of that Bucks Eagles game. But whatever the case is, there's just a little bit not clicking right now for this Philadelphia pass offense, and that's really how you want to attack Washington. So I think Washington's D-line and Chase Young coming along is a pretty exciting matchup against a really good O-line for Philadelphia. You may even get a little bit of help from the refs here with kind of a little bit of added attention on Lane Johnson, who seems to be getting a little bit of a head start on every passing down. But whatever the case is, I just think this should be about a 7-point spread. So I took the 8.5 with the commies.
I lied about the Chargers-Raiders. I just want to seize on one point. We were talking about this off air. Jimmy G is in concussion protocol. When you see that, by the way, his backups Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell. When you see that in your handicapping approach, you put a line through it, you said? Like he's not going to play? That's the assumption?
Yeah, if there's Monday morning news that a player is in the concussion protocol, you can put a red line through them playing the next week. It's too quick. Basically, they have to have made a mistake to get them into the practice, into the limited practice participant on Wednesday, which I think is where I don't know the nuances of the rule, but if you're not a limited participant on the first reported day of practice, then you're really not eligible to come out of the concussion protocol. So it's a pretty strict and kind of impressive way to protect some of these players from themselves, which I fully appreciate. But I think in terms of what do you do with that information, you put a line through it. And I'm going on the fact that Brian Hoyer popped up off the bench, put his helmet on, and was doing a couple of reps when it looked like Jimmy G was going to potentially miss some snaps after getting rolled on by T.J. Watt. I'm assuming that means he really actually will be the starting quarterback here instead of Aiden O'Connell. If this is Aiden O'Connell, I don't feel great about laying the Chargers all of a sudden because he's got much more of live of an arm than Brian Hoyer does. But I don't really expect Brian Hoyer to be able to take the top off the defense here for the Chargers. And I like some of the way that the Chargers kind of have bounced back and after a couple of pretty lousy defensive performances to start the season. So I think they can get a pretty comfortable win here against a Hoyer-led Vegas team.
All right, and real quick, because I don't want to get to your 2 totals. The Colts, it's a 1-point spread against the Rams. Short week for the Rams. You just think the Colts are the better football team?
Yeah, that and Rams really fell apart late in that contest with some of the injuries to their offensive line. And some of the amazing play you saw from Stafford in the early part of the season was really, really, what the pivotal part that wasn't really discussed a ton was that he was very well protected. Some of that was the team, he faced week 1 and the Seahawks couldn't rush the passer. But in general, with a little, now a short turnaround, another really actually, the Rams are probably in the worst spot of the week if you want to talk about situational stuff. They played on the road at Cincinnati on a Monday night, then they go back to LA, and then they're flying to Indianapolis for a short week, and 2 flights across the country. Absolutely miserable. Oh, by the way, this is their 3rd road game now out of 4. Also applies to Miami. So Miami and LA Rams really logging a lot of frequent flyer miles early in this season, and I think you might start to see some impacts there. We're kind of in the very early part of the season where rest and flight is pretty imbalanced across some of these teams, and the 2 that really stand out are Indy and Buffalo being the beneficiaries of those advantages.
Okay, your 2 totals are?
The one that seems like the lowest hanging fruit, which I'm sure those never seem to work out, is the Carolina-Minnesota one. Carolina's defense is not what we expected at all because of some of the injuries they're dealing with. Minnesota should be able to score well into the 20s, if not the 30s in this one. And I think that you're not going to see Bryce Young. They seem to be inclined to, keep him in a little bit of bubble wrap here. And Andy Dalton actually has, I think, a much higher ceiling with this team and, with his experience. So Minnesota's defense is among the bottom 5, I think, pretty obviously. Carolina's is bottom half. And when you account for injuries, I have them in the bottom 10. So I'm not exactly sure why this total is south of 47. I think anything better, 46.5 or better, I think is a bet to the over with Carolina, Minnesota. And then, Cincy, Tennessee looks a little high to me. It looked high at 44.5 yesterday. I didn't really get why we were giving that much credit to Tennessee's offense to be able to go score for score with Cincinnati. And I like in general the idea that you're getting a limited Joe Burrow in terms of pocket mobility against the Tennessee pass rush, and really just a front 4 that's pretty outstanding there. So that, again, it looks like a pretty ugly contest. And if Joe Burrow turns out to be perfectly healthy, then so be it. But I think it's going to take more than just a week, and particularly a short week, for him to get right to the tune where he's able to attack the part of the field where Tennessee's most vulnerable. And Tennessee's defense also quietly getting healthier. Tennessee's offense is among the worst in the league, if not the worst. I guess you'd have to put Chicago in the discussion, but I think Tennessee is probably the 32nd best offense.
All right, so over in the Vikings-Carolina game, under on the Bengals-Titans game. Just back to the Vikings for a second. We just talked about the most auto-overy teams, and we were talking about the Dolphins. Yeah. Are the Vikings just as auto-over as the Dolphins are, in your opinion?
I mean, I think so. You have to keep an eye on some of the offensive line injuries for the Vikings, because if Kirk Cousins is under pressure, then things go a little pear-shaped for that offense. But I don't think Carolina's healthy enough to really make that matter. And I think Minnesota is going to get probably 28 is a realistic baseline expectation for them in this game.
Yeah, Bears the only team thus far to have all 3 games go over the total, it should be noted. Drew, great to see you. Great to have you back, man. Thank you so much.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.